the 1940s in Baghdad. It was a decade defined by a remarkable intellectual pulse, where the city's ancient heritage met a modern, soaring ambition. In the heart of this cultural transformation stood two institutions that would become the gold standard of education in the Middle East. They were more than just schools, they were the factories of the elite, shaping the minds that would go on to lead Iraq into a new era. Today we open the rare archives of the Shamash School and the Frank Iny School to discover how these citadels of knowledge built a legacy that still resonates today. To understand the prestige of these institutions, we must first look at the Shamash School. Established in 1928, Shamash was synonymous with academic rigor. It wasn't merely a place of learning, it was an incubator for excellence. The curriculum was famously demanding, blending high-level sciences and mathematics with a mastery of multiple languages. As documented in the rare research of the book Jewish Schools in Iraq, the students of Shamash were consistently at the top of the national baccalaureate exams. They weren't just passing, they were leading the nation. The atmosphere inside Shamash was one of intense discipline and meritocracy. It didn't matter where you came from. What mattered was the sharpness of your intellect and your commitment to your studies. The teachers, many of whom were renowned scholars in their own right, instilled a sense of civic duty in their pupils. They were being prepared to be the doctors, the engineers, and the high-ranking civil servants of a growing Iraqi state. When you walked through the halls of Shamash, you were walking through the future of the country. But as the decade progressed, a new name began to dominate the educational landscape: the Frank Iny School. If Shamash represented the pillar of tradition and rigor, Frank Iny represented the pinnacle of modernity. Established in the early 1940s, it quickly became known as the most prestigious private school in Baghdad. Its founder envisioned a school that could rival the finest institutions in London or Paris, and he spared no expense to make that vision a reality. The archives describe the Frank Iny School as a marvel of its time. It boasted state-of-the-art science laboratories, expansive sports fields, and a library that was a sanctuary for any young mind. But perhaps its most significant feature was its inclusivity. While founded by the Jewish community, Frank Iny was a beacon for the entire Baghdadi elite. It was a place where children of different faiths and backgrounds sat side by side, united by a shared pursuit of knowledge. It was a microcosm of a multicultural, intellectual Iraq, a nation that was confident, capable, and connected to the world. The impact of these two schools on Iraqi society cannot be overstated. They provided the social mobility that fueled the rise of the modern Iraqi middle class. As the book Jewish Schools in Iraq poignantly records, these schools were not closed sectarian institutions. They were national lighthouses. Their discipline and academic standards created a generation of professionals who were the backbone of Iraq's modern development. From the courtrooms of Baghdad to the surgical theaters of its hospitals, the fingerprints of Shamash and Frank Iny graduates were everywhere. The 1940s were indeed the golden age for these institutions. They represented a moment in history where education was the highest form of philanthropy and the surest path to progress. The graduates of this era didn't just leave with diplomas, they left with a worldview that was both deeply rooted in their Mesopotamian identity and broadly aligned with global scientific and literary trends. They were the bridge between Iraq and the modern world. However, history is rarely a straight line of progress. As we look at the smiling faces in these old graduation photos, we know that the geopolitical tides were beginning to turn. The stability and peace that allowed these schools to flourish were soon to be tested by the storms of the late 1940s. But for that brief, shining moment, Baghdad was a city where the light of knowledge burned brighter than anywhere else in the region. In our next episode, we will explore the final chapter of this incredible journey. We will look at the immense challenges that surfaced as the decade closed and the profound resilience of a community that fought to keep the doors of learning open, even as the world around them began to change. If you are moved by these stories of excellence and want to see the original archives, the names of the graduates, and the rare photographs that make this history come alive, the digital edition of Jewish Schools in Iraq is available for you. This book is the primary source for everything we discuss, preserving a history that must never be forgotten. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the lost archives of Babylon. We will see you in the next episode.